distinguished guests, forum organizer, dear academic scholars, good morning. I'm so honored to be here today to present my current research findings on comparative images of womanhood in consumer societies. My name is Jane Austin. My Chinese name is Zhao Shuyan. I'm a postdoc researcher in University of International Business and Economics. Currently a visitor scholar at African and African American Studies, Duke University. Research field is on women's health, the women's social rights protection from the perspectives of African American women and Caucasian women's advantage future lifetime planning. The program has a visual in-depth description of current health status, its influential factors and life risks are being faced by typical women cases in the African American community, Caucasian community, etc. To combine text and image research method for exploring economic, demographic, cultural, and social reasons behind women's life expectancy in the United States. The aim is to make a comparative analysis of the average future lifetime of women and its influential factors in 3 types of countries and areas: developed, developing, and least developed countries worldwide, with a clue of empirical facts of daily life practice of 3-stage women in the communities: adolescence group, fertility group, and menopause group, for guiding women to prevent risk effectively, improve the social status of women, and earnestly safeguard women's rights. Image of womanhood was a prevailing value system among the upper and middle classes during the 19th century in the United States and Great Britain. This value system emphasized new ideas of femininity, the women's role within the home, and the dynamics of home and workplace. True women were supposed to possess 4 the quality virtues: piety, purity, domesticity, and submissiveness. Image of Afro-American women presupposes the existence of tradition and have concentrated on establishing an interpretation of that tradition. It also eliminates the sexual ideologies that define the ways in which Afro-American women live in their relation to their material conditions of existence. Ideologies of African-American women were the sites of racial struggle, which enabled them to negotiate their subordinate role in relation to patriarchy and at the same time to ally their class interests with men and against establishing alliance with white women. The idea and history of Africans' identity in America have traditionally been traced back to a legacy of slavery and civil rights in America. To interpret the concept of identity and image should be from different theoretical standpoints: psychoanalytic, cultural, post-structuralist. The process of it should be divided into 3 stages. The first stage of African diaspora, the second stage of African immigrants, and the third stage of African American and the interpreted stage, which related to the cultures, African and Negro. In this process, a transitional characteristic has been highlighted: slave immigrants being owned by my master at the stage of diaspora. In the immigrant stage, freed women immigrants being possessed by man owner. And developed to the Afro-American stage, something has changed. The subjugation of women is not inherent, but relatively to be balanced, male-female interacted, can be observed in gender-based social formation. African culture has always emphasized that man should define himself in terms of his work and is expected to earn money regardless of need, as he gains from his work a sense of autonomy and self-esteem. Recently, many women have already begun efforts to reassess the direction of development of combined women's liberation with more options on the terms of men. This attempt may have the effect of having men endorse women's greater raw modernity. Body image is produced and reproduced in American media, which is male. The supremacist, racist, ageist, heterosexist, anti-Semitic, ableist, and class-biased in that the image is produced for the typically white male viewer who judges the body of the women. A clear example of objectification can be seen in the fair-skinned, straight-haired, light-eyed images of African American, Asian, and Latin models in advertising, which only serve to reinforce the privileging of the Eurocentric and Caucasian characteristics. At the same time, the battlefield for many of the women's struggles during the 20th century was women's body. These varied and often competing representations of womanhood revealed the very public and very personal meanings that consumer society offered women in the modern United States. Comparative feminism calls for empowering and subversive images of women so as to change the vision of our culture. Women need alternative body images to stop measuring their own bodies against idealized body images. Many women struggle every day to resist racism, the heterosexism, and classism in their workplaces, communities, families, and relationships. As a result, old stereotypes about female body images have started to break down, even as they continue to haunt the way the female body are represented in newspapers, magazines, and television. In general, the vast majority of all American working women participate in economic activity, while the trends stretched above will undoubtedly continue. The majority of American women work out of financial necessity. Women are afraid to work or to express their bodies because of the creation of necessities, which in fact determine their need to work or to express their bodies. Thus, I believe, American women are used as a reserve army in the labor force, which also explains their state of oppression. But in China, which is indifferent. Before the 1980s, the Chinese society's wealth was mainly concentrated in the hands of the state. The state redistributed the wealth according to the individual status in the social structure. From the 1980s to 1990s, due to the market mechanism, changes in mechanism of resource allocation, some people in society reached up quickly, resulting in a concentrated increasingly in a few hands of the wealth. So-called elite group who reaped the gain through cabal or abused public power in the hands. Among such cadres, there were some government officials in charge of the various powers and some professionals and involved in various powers. The problems of embezzlement and corruption, misappropriation of state property have become quite serious. Huge loss of state assets, that is, public property, was converted into private pockets through various channels, etc. Recently, the property of white-collar crime, street power and money, street power and sex were highlighted. There existed a lot of hidden income and an ungrounded economy. Business society adopted various means to induce women to cater to the image shaping of the so-called perfect women. For example, willing to be full-time housewife. Some creators of the ads are keen on sexually hint and even continue sexual violence. So the women are placed in a position of weakness, being teased or even humiliated by others. In today's society, power and wealth have become the master of all. So some powerful men begin to realize their own value by conquering knowledgeable, beautiful young women, and this conquest often oversteps legal and ethical framework, hunting mistresses, lovers through sexual transactions. In the period of trade reform, Chinese government implemented policy to protect women's employment and political participation, but the neglected policy moved to raise the quality of women, resulting in women's disadvantaged positions. In fierce competition of market economic system, some have become victims of sexual commodification of social trends. In the past century, striking achievements were achieved by Chinese women in the fight for economic independence. However, in today's commercial society, women as commercial products are being consumed, which is a re-emergence of historical phenomenon. Beauty economy is a part of spiritual and cultural product, which is advertised by businessmen to be consumed by the public as a product. It is a combination of real beauty and a speedy developing economy. Its existence is understandable, but it requires a constraint of rules. At present, in almost the entire industry, and game rules can't be found. As proof, its business even repeatedly into the legal and moral bottom line. Young and beautiful female intellectuals have become commercial products which are being consumed by powerful men, such as providing paid companion or porn service. Among them, there are quite a lot of college students and even graduates. In China, the postdoc program is an R&D of participative women's life insurance product by using actual model of average future lifetime. As the program moved on, I gradually changed focus of the program because the more research I did, the more women's problems were highlighted in process. The data facts shocked me a lot when I searched the data on the website of Population Division, Department of Economic and Social Affairs, United Nations. The first, according to the 7 indicators for measuring of the social status of women groups, Chinese women rank 132 among over 160 countries in the world. The second, according to the data in the United Nations World Population Prospect Report, from 2005 and 2010 on average, and women's life expectancy is 4.5 years longer than men's. In China, 3.5 years in 2011, the gap has moved to 2 years old. It indicates that the gap is being narrowed. Personally, I think the status of Chinese women didn't rise along with the progressive economic reform. On the contrary, in a fierce market competition, the status appeared a very pessimistic deterioration trend. So, it's a scholar's basic responsibility to make an exploration of the underlying causes of its formation. So, when I applied for being an external visiting scholar at African and African American Studies, my focus of program was on women's health and women's rights protection with the perspective of a comparative analysis on images of womanhood worldwide. This is what I want to express here. Thanks to everyone.